क्रिकेट तो देखते ही है, पर वो 5 दिन चलने वाले हैं। वनडे नहीं है या T20 नहीं है, पर ये टेस्ट है, 5 दिन चलने वाले हैं। पर मोदी आ जाने वाला, इसलिए इतना।
All right, so that essentially is the sentiment, Abhishek, and that essentially is the sentiment every time in Gujarat that the Prime Minister comes here. But of course, there is a sense in the people as well to understand that there is the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese as well, who's going to be seated here along with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They understand the gravity of this meeting that is happening right behind me, that will happen right behind me at the Narendra Modi Stadium, inside of the Narendra Modi Stadium.
Now,
and
Priyanka,
also important to note how Anthony Albanese in fact had reached here and had gone to the Gandhi Ashram and then will be meeting the Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the first time today here at the stadium itself. Yanapur.
Absolutely. Priyanka continues to be with us. The pictures on your screen right now are of the Prime Minister flanked by the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and earlier on also we saw top officials of the BCCI also over there. So we're going to cut across to those pictures as well for our viewers where the Prime Minister is arriving at the Narendra Modi. Right, the Prime Minister of course is inside the stadium at the Narendra Modi Stadium. So they're greeted by Roger Binney as well as Jay Shah. Jay Shah as well as Roger Binney were welcoming him. Let's also go across to Abhishek Kapoor, our senior executive editor, also joining us on the broadcast. Priyanka continues, of course, to be live with us, flanked by a lot of those fans over there. Abhishek, very interesting manner in which this is being conducted in terms, of soft diplomacy, perhaps. Interesting idea. Not just that, we are, of course, hearing that perhaps the two prime ministers will go onto the pitch as well. There was some talk of, the toss being done and the Prime Ministers being present. Anything that you can share with us on that as well?
An interview that Anthony Albanese gave to the Australian media, particularly the radio there, before embarking on this trip, Nupur, and in that interview, Albanese said that they would be at the toss and also perhaps spend a few minutes inside the commentary box. And remember, you mentioned soft diplomacy. While the diplomacy might be softer, the rivalry on the ground is fierce. And in fact, the manner in which the Border-Gavaskar Trophy has really panned out, it's seen as a heir to the Ashes series. In fact, people now, those who watch cricket closely, suggest that the Border-Gavaskar Trophy has more substance, more energy, more hunger, more of rivalry than the Ashes, in fact. And that's everything to do with the manner in which the India-Australia cricket rivalry has really panned out over the last 3 decades at least, and coinciding with India actually becoming a cricketing power and sort of taking the mantle on from the Australians. So in that sense, I think you are going to see a mix and match of soft diplomacy and hard cricket happening. In the ongoing series, I don't watch cricket closely, but I'm told India has won 2 matches and Australia came back to the series by winning the 3rd one. And that's where the grain is, that whether the 4th match also would be taken in by Australia and the series leveled, or somehow India retain the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. That would be interesting to watch out. So that's about cricket. But also, Nupur, this is about India-Australia relationship really panning out. As it happens with close friends, Prime Minister wants to take them out of New Delhi and to show them other parts of India as well. And we'll continue to have this conversation, Nupur. I'm told I have to take a short break. Be right back.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी ऑल्सो।
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स।
बिल्कुल
जी।
आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing. The resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस। किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम CEO of 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी। अच्छा। टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने ADG इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvians media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी ऑल्सो।
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स।
बिल्कुल।
जी।
आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing. The resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीईओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी
अच्छा
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician and the Latvian media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 not-for-profit private university for 10 years, with top 10 ranked institutions in management, engineering, biotech, law, mass comm, telecom, hospitality, fashion and more. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी ऑल्सो।
सर, इट्स अ पर्सनैलिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है।
Welcome back. You are with Republic TV, and pictures on your screen are of the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, arriving over there, greeted by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A warm hug between the two. Do remember that India and Australia, of course, have a very special relationship with each other. We are cutting across to pictures that we are getting from the stadium right now, where a short cultural program is being held.
for that fantastic performance that represents this wonderful friendship through cricket between India and Australia. I now humbly request the Honourable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and the Honourable Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Anthony Albanese, to do us the honours and hand over the test caps to the team captains. Steve Smith will collect the cap from the Honourable Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Anthony Albanese. And Rohit Sharma, likewise, will get his cap from the Honourable Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi ji. Captains, I'd now like to request the two honourable Prime Ministers to do the lap of honour. And that will be around this magnificent stadium in front of a huge crowd. Because cricket today is a religion that binds the people of all nations. Border-Gavaskar Trophy has been one of the highest impact and dominant duels in the world of cricket. But today we are here to celebrate something even more special, as the two honourable Prime Ministers do the lap of honour. What's special? It's 75 years of friendship through cricket. Over the years, there have been so many instances where a compelling one-on-one exchange between the players has not changed. The complexion of an India-Australia match, but also kept the viewers at the edge of their seats. It's the Test cricket that's been played between the two nations over the last 5 or 6 decades that has got this India-Australia series top billing. Not just in their respective countries, but around the globe. The plethora of characters that both sides bring to the cricket field make it a fascinating mix for players, and is always enjoyable to watch for a cricket lover.
The presence of two prime ministers between our nations that have had such an intense rivalry on the cricket field, but growing collaboration of it, and may it always be that way. There's a specially minted coin today celebrating 75 years of Indo-Australian friendship through cricket. It's given us some great cricket over the years and will continue to do so. That coin is in the hands of was in the hands of Chris Broad, now in the hands of the home captain Rohit Sharma. Steve Smith still captain of Australia. Rohit, your call. Heads is the call from Steve. It is a head, Steve. You won the toss, and you're going to...
We're going to have a bat.
And your side for today, Steve?
Same team.
The surface looks a bit different. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it does. It looks like a nice surface. Yeah, it's hard to say until we...
All right, so that, of course, was the lap that was done right before the match started. On your screens right now are the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese over there going across the stadium. I'm going to go across to Abhishek Kapoor. Now, Abhishek, you know, just a bit ago, of course, we saw the toss take place, the Australian side deciding to bat. Now, no pressure really on both the captains, Steve Smith and Rohit Sharma, both of them in a tough place today. You know, they've got a great audience. Of course, you know, their country's leaders watching them amongst other dignitaries today. So what do you think is going through their minds?
Well, I don't know about the pressure on the captains, Newport, but I'm sure Anthony Albanese would be under tremendous pressure because those kind of crowds, you know, having them for cricket and having them for political events, both are a challenge down under. So in that sense, I think as much as the captains, even Anthony Albanese would have that sense of being overwhelmed by the kind of reception he has got. Not likely that he would get those kind of that kind of reception, you know, at other places that he visits. Remember, immediately after his India trip, which is a longish 3.5 days, he's traveling to the United States, in fact. But for cricket, you have your guests, Nupur. I would just say that this rivalry has really shaped over the last 2 decades, and since you have the experts, I should not be talking much. I think that the turn of the century when under Steve Waugh, the Australian team came visiting and wanted to conquer their final frontier. They could not. I think that really set the tone, and that has continued over the last 2 decades. For more, I think you can go to the experts.
Oh yes, absolutely. So Abhishek, as you're pointing out, of course, a lot of pressure there on the two captains. But we're going to talk about the cricket in just a bit. Pictures on your screen right now are of the two prime ministers. I think this is before the event began, is what I would assume. Of course, that's Ravi Shastri, who is comparing the event behind them. We can see the Gujarat Chief Minister, Bhupendra Patel, as well as, of course, Roger Binney and Jay Shah, all three of them. I think I would assume this is the museum or perhaps, you know, an exhibition hall that's there inside the stadium. I'm going to now go across to Gaurav Sethi, who's the founder of BoardCricket.com, also joining us on the broadcast. Himanshu Chaturvedi, he's the founder of Lok Diksha Sports Law Initiative, and Harpal Singh Bedi, senior sports journalist, of course. Mr. Bedi, good morning. Coming first to you. You know, what do you think is going to be going through those captains today? Of course, India in the lead over here. Okay, we're going to go across to Harpal Singh Bedi in just a bit, but let's quickly dip into figure out what's happening over there.
All right, we're getting those pictures of Prime Minister and Prime Ministers Modi and Albanese taking a look around at the stadium and an exhibition that has been put. I believe that must be of the India-Australia cricketing rivalry. I'll go to Harpal Singh Bedi on that note. Mr. Bedi, you are the expert, but I was talking about the turn of the century visit of the Australian team under Steve Waugh, and the rivalry really taking shape in that period when Steve Waugh wanted, at the pinnacle of Australian cricketing power, to sort of win the final frontier, but he could not. And he hit the wall, and the wall was Rahul Dravid. And I think that second inning partnership in a follow-on between Rahul Dravid and VVS Lakshman, if you could just talk about some cricket between India and Australia, as the two prime ministers watch that Hall of Fame, that exhibition on the two cricketing nations. Mr. Bedi, can you hear? Are you getting me?
You are asking me? Hello?
Yeah, I'm getting you now. Okay, let me ask the question again, Mr. Bedi, if you are getting me now. I asked that till the time that the prime ministers go around this exhibition, we just wanted to discuss some cricket. This is, of course, mixing of cricket and diplomacy, but on the cricket part, under Steve Waugh, when Australia was at the peak of its power, they had come in 2001, I believe, hoping that they would win the final frontier, and they could not in the test series, and they hit a wall, and the wall was Rahul Dravid and VVS Lakshman assisting him in that follow-on match. And we managed to defeat Australia and stop their possibility of winning that series. Your thoughts on the India-Australia cricket rivalry as it has shaped up since then over the last 2 decades?
I think we should not repeat that history. What happened 20 years ago is history. After that, we have come a long way. India is always a very difficult team. After 90s, India has been always a very difficult team to be beaten at home. Whether it's Australia, whether England or West Indies. Earlier, all the teams used to come and win and go. That's a different thing. But I'm talking after late 80s or 90s, it has become a very tough side, at least at home. So talking about that, what happened, Steve Waugh's team, that is history. We played well, and that had a psychological impact on Indian team, no doubt about it, that India can fight back. And the Australians have always been a good team, but it has been very inconsistent in recent times. It is not a consistent side, which it used to be under Steve Waugh and others. I think it has happened with every other team. Now England is coming up. But most of the teams who have travelled India in 90s and now, they are not very consistent with their performances. The Indian, at least at home, have been consistent. Losing one match or two matches here or there is different thing. But as this is, it is very difficult for a visiting team to beat India, especially in test matches in India. So yes, it is better if you, as a reference material, we can say that yes, defeat India's winning against Steve Waugh team in Calcutta was a turning point, no doubt about it. But after that, India has improved a lot, and it is that they are now at par with Australia or other teams. But coming to think of this series, this match is very important for India because they were on the verge of getting into the final when they lost the track and they lost the match in Indore. So that is a different thing. We try to be too clever by half. We try to create a track which we thought will help us, but it helped the Australians because it's nothing to lose. They fought back and they taught us such a lesson that it is not always that what you prepare will help you. I think this test is going to be a fascinating test in the sense, I'm not saying that going to be the greatest test or thriller. It is fascinating in the sense that India needs to win this match to show themselves a place in the world test.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, there will be a lot of permutation and combination. Australians who came here and were underdogs, having lost 2 matches very badly, they came back very strongly and confirmed their place in World Test Championship. I'm reminded of 2018 when Indian team, when Australian came and in a 5 match ODI series, they lost 2 matches very badly.
Absolutely.
Gavaskar is on record of having said that he had never seen such a poor team from Australia reaching India. And lo and behold, Australia won the next 3 matches and won the series. So I think we should not judge or we should not jump to the conclusion before the series concludes. This match is going to be fascinating and India will be under pressure at the moment.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Mr. Bedi, as you're pointing out, of course, it's extremely crucial that we win this one so that we get a direct entry into the ICC World Test Championship. But I'm going to go across also to Gaurav Sethi, the founder of BoardCricket.com. Gaurav, can't be easy on the two captains this morning. Obviously, they've got a great audience, a packed stadium, and if that wasn't enough pressure, they've got, their side's prime ministers watching. So what do you think is going through their minds?
As a test captain and a captain of your country, I think you are able to soak in a lot of pressure. And we're talking about two professional cricketers who've been in the sport, international sport, not just playing for their state teams, but playing for India for a very long time. Rohit Sharma might be new to captaining India in tests, but I think in the last couple of years, what he has shown is that as captain, he has been one of the better test players for India as a test batsman. So when you're able to transfer whatever that pressure is on captaincy into performance, it straight away shows you're up for the job. Now, this series, of course, has been very challenging in the sense that even though India has started with the lead, we were leading 2-0, and it just seems in hindsight that Australia has struck back in Indore, but it has been a lot closer than that. None of India's batting has really clicked in a very long time. This continues to be the flavor of this series. Australia's batting was under the pump also. You are talking of Steve Smith as the Australian captain from Indore. He is far more seasoned as a captain than Pat Cummins, who was the captain prior to him, who had to fly back for personal reasons. What you are talking about are two extremely competitive teams, but I would also like to put in context the history of India-Australia as test-playing nations. When India first played Australia in a test, that was 1947 in Brisbane. India did not even reach 100 in that test. They batted twice. They lost by an innings. Donald Bradman was the captain of the Australian team. Lala Amarnath was the captain of the Indian team. Fast forward many years, more than 70 years, India finally beat Australia in Brisbane, in Gabba, which by many is considered to be one of the most fascinating test matches ever played. The fact that India has successfully beaten Australia twice in Australia, which they never had, and they only did very recently, shows the flow for India overseas. But at the same time, I think what we all need to be very mindful of is that India, even though they do look very unbeatable at home, and the records seem to pretty much say that, I do think that this series has been a lot closer. India has been put under threat, and that is largely because India isn't as good as it was against spin. I mean, when you have spoken about, the wonderful series where India was deemed to be the final frontier, and VVS Lakshman and Rahul Dravid pretty much did the turnaround for the ages. We do not see that quality of spin or guile even today. But our batting is definitely not up to it. We are talking about an aging batting lineup, and they are going to be put to an extreme test even today, because what you're talking about is back-to-back games which came at both India and Australia, where everyone was only talking about the pitch. Now, if you are going to be so preoccupied with the conditions, is there a lack in your preparation? And I do think there has been a lack in India's ability as well as Australia's ability. I think Australia was flummoxed in the first two tests. They didn't know what hit them. But because they were able to regroup so well, we are up for not just a fascinating test match here, but one which should be competitive, because India will have had a relook at how they want to, what kind of a pitch do they want to put, because the criticism that the indoor pitch has come under, I think, has allowed everyone to rethink and say, listen, we're having test matches which are done in 3 days, well under 3 days. Can we stretch the test further? I mean, it's a 5-day test match finally. But is it down to the ability of the batting? Is it just the pitch? I think these are questions that both captains will ask themselves. We're talking about Steve Smith as one of the best test batsmen in the last many years now. And his game against spin has been tested, as has everyone else in the Indian lineup. So it really is up to how much up are they up for a scrap? Because we saw also in the previous game, there was one man from the Indian lineup who scored a 50, Cheteshwar Pujara. He just recently played his 100th test. His place in the team has always been under question. It was under question again. And when we are talking about that kind of scrutiny which comes again and again, and Pujara was one of the architects, along with Rishabh Pant, for those wins in Australia. Pant is missing, as we all know. But Pujara, who's close to scoring 2,000 runs solely against Australia, what he can deliver. So we are talking about various different stories within this larger story of India playing Australia. You know, there's some great characters there, but can they come up and do something which will be memorable?
As we keep getting those pictures from the Narendra Modi Stadium in Motera, Ahmedabad, which is part of the larger Sardar Patel Sports Enclave, Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Anthony Albanese there in the pictures, having taken a lap of honor together on a golf cart. And now toss has already happened. The Australians have won the toss. These are live pictures now, in fact, of Anthony Albanese coming in out on the pitch. We are also awaiting the possibility. Both the Prime Ministers, in fact, there. Prime Minister Modi with... Well, let's go to the audio coming in from the stadium.
Robert Menzies all the way down. So is the Honourable Narendra Modi. Never short of wishing the team well. Must be a big moment for a lot of those players. It's always good when your head of state when your Prime Minister wants to come and see you play. Just remind you on the field itself, Australia, as I said a little while ago, Australia unchanged, India just the one change. They will be batting first on a surface that is pretty different from some of the surfaces we've seen so far. Had a nice little cultural program for a brief while before the play started. And now the two teams will line up in the presence of their respective prime ministers for the national anthem. It's always a very special moment if you're out on the field for it. So let's join the two teams with the national anthem. salute to the cricket. India versus Australia, 75 years of friendship. It was to Australia that independent India first sent a cricket team out. November 1947, that first test match in Brisbane, that India first played under the banner of India. And now a little over 75 years later, here in Ahmedabad, they will take on Australia once again in a test match that will decide how this series ends. Will it be 3-1? Will it be 2-2? We don't like draws these days. Matthew Hayden's alongside me, so is Border-Gavaskar. We'll hear from them very shortly as the two prime ministers find their way to where they're going to sit to watch the game. And the flags are flooded. You were down there as well, Haydos. It's quite an occasion.
Yeah, 100%. A great occasion for the diplomatic enclave, but also the sporting community as a whole. Of course it is. It's a test match. It's a big series. It's arguably the biggest now for Australia. This India-Australia rivalry, 75 years young now, just plummeting up to stratosphere. Unbelievable scenes here. 1 lakh for those at home. That's 100,000 people. That's Boxing Day test match. That's the MCG, something that we've been accustomed to. And here we are all the way in the north. In Ahmedabad, 100,000 people looking forward to a test match on a good surface too, it must be said. Steve Smith winning the toss. Had absolutely no problem in batting first.
How big is that toss?
I think it's going to be, in India always the toss is crucial. Having said that, for the first 3 matches the teams that won the toss lost. So clearly I think when you bat first you've got to put up enough runs on the board. Australia did put runs on the board in Nagpur, but India batted really well because the pitch eased up a little bit when India batted. So this is a crucial toss. Australia will be looking to carry on from what they did at Indore in the second innings when Travis Head batted so well and took the attack to the opposition, and Labuschagne played as he normally does, a very composed innings. Usman Khawaja has been in tremendous form.
The Aussie team remains unchanged, and Sonny Aston.
For the match to start, which would be watched by the Prime Minister. In fact, we are told that there's likelihood that the two Prime Ministers might get into the commentary box. I'm told we will take a short break and we will be right back to the Narendra Modi Stadium.
Amity has been ranked India's #1 not-for-profit private university for 10 years, with top 10 ranked institutions in management, engineering, biotech, law, masscom, telecom, hospitality, fashion and more. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो.
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम.
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल. आपकी फौज में भी यही है. डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू. आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना. यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट. दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग. सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liftards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं and then you start
We continue to beam the pictures from Narendra Modi Stadium in Motera, Ahmedabad, and where Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Anthony Albanese of Australia are there. They have taken a sort of a victory lap around the stadium, and it was called Lap of Honor. And then, of course, they witnessed the toss between the two sides, with the Australians have won and have had a go around at an exhibition of India-Australia cricketing ties. If I could continue with the guests, get back to Mr. Bedi. Mr. Bedi, before the match starts, your thoughts on this final, because the result here would impact, I believe, India's chances at the World Test Cricket Championship in the UK in June.
As I heard, it is very difficult, as I may sound repetitive, but it is very difficult to beat India in India. But Australians have nothing to lose now. After having confirmed their place in the World Test Championship final, they will go all out. They had already lost this trophy. They are not going to retain the trophy, even if they miss the match. If the series is drawn, they will remain. India will retain the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. But the whole idea is that the Indians took. This is my opinion. People may disagree with me. Indians took it very lightly after winning the two matches. Whatever you may say, but India outplayed them in first two matches. And third test was for the asking. But I don't know who advised them. They made such a track which they fell in their own trap. So this one thing is proved that India is not all that good at spin. Whatever you may say, their spinners proved to be much more incisive and decisive in the decisive match for them. Not for India, but for them. And if India had won the third match, they would have been safely in the World Test Championship. Not that they are not at the moment, but they will have to be. Now they are under pressure to perform better, to win the match, so that there is no permutation and combination for the World Test Championship. Having said that, I think the change of captainship in Australia made a big difference. But you must give a credit to Steve Smith that he said that it is not his permanent job. He doesn't want it. It's Pat Cummins' job. I don't think any Indian or in any captain in the subcontinent will ever say this, who has won it, that I am willing to. He made it very clear that it is a stopgap arrangement because Pat Cummins had to fly back for these domestic reasons. So he is he's officiating on his behalf at the instruction of the Australian Cricket Board. So this is a great thing to admit that having, in spite of the fact that he won that match, kept a series alive for as far as Australia is concerned, showed to the world he's better captain than Pat Cummins, but still says that he doesn't want captainship. His period is over. He's no longer going to be a captain. This is a great thing. I think this is a great sportsmanship trait. Otherwise, no one say this. That look here, I have won the match, but I discriminated or like. But this great thing, I think we are going to see this fourth test is going to be a very interesting match.
All right, let me take a word from Gaurav Sethi as well. Gaurav Sethi, Ricky Ponting has sort of, as the Australians do, played some mind games, suggesting that India should not be focusing on pitch, should be focusing on the match if they have to really qualify for the WTC final in June. You think those are mind games, or that challenge is really real?
So it's about knowing what Ricky Ponting does. I think even as a player, he did love a lot of these kind of games, and that is Ricky Ponting's character. There is a bit of playfulness in him, and I think this does go with the territory. It's what he is saying is pretty much there. You cannot be focused on the pitch, because if you're going to be so preoccupied with the pitch, you really are taking away that focus from your batting, from your bowling, from what your disciplines are. The pitch is never in your control, even though if you look at it as, say, a home advantage where curators are almost told how to go about it. Once you get that pitch, and I think it was important that India got pitches that did give results, because India did need results. They got 2 wins. It was in India's interest to have, I don't think they're being called sporting wickets, but yes, you have had a results. Maybe too soon, but it is in India's interest to win Ahmedabad.
Yeah, I think Ahmedabad also, for whatever little cricket I know, Gaurav Sethi, Ahmedabad pitch is known to really worsen over days and sort of turn a little more, goes dead so far as pace is concerned. I think it would be interesting to watch out. I'm told I have to take a short break and we'll continue this conversation on the other side.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीईओ ऑफ 6AR, और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी,
अच्छा,
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट, एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप उनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो. जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम.
Soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvian media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this.
All right, welcome back, and let's take a sense of what's happening on the ground outside the stadium. In fact, Priyanka Sharma is reporting from there in Ahmedabad. Priyanka, over to you. Give us a sense of the mood of the crowd and the anticipation there of cricket and, of course, diplomacy as well with both the Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Albanese there. Give us a sense of what's happening there on the ground.
Seeing that a lot of people have been here and they have been very excited, of course, not just for the cricket but for the Prime Minister having been here as well. We'll try to get in a word from some of them. आप लोग आए हो क्रिकेट देखने में?
हाँ, और मोदी को देखने आए खास.
मोदी जी के लिए आए हो? क्रिकेट के लिए?
क्रिकेट के लिए भी आए और मोदी जी के लिए भी आए.
और बाकी जो दूसरे what we essentially see is a lot of other people that have come here, and of course all of them cheering for the country while they're going inside. Of course, a lot of fanatic cricket fans as well, but all of them saying that they are also trying to get in a glimpse of the Prime Minister as well. आप लोग आइए, आप लोग बड़ा get-up बना के अच्छा. So a lot of people in a rush to go inside as well, Abhishek, because now of course the match is going to begin since the toss has already happened, and we did see since morning that how the number of the politicians as well that had come here, and what we saw were MLAs and cabinet ministers as well that have been inside of the stadium as well. Let's try to get in a word from some more people. I see a lot of people, but they are all in a lot of rush right now, Abhishek, to just try to make it to the stadium. If we could pan our cameras and show you how a number of people are running inside of the stadium, trying to get there on time as well. Of course, also because of the security protocol, because we are expecting that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Anthony Albanese will be leaving as well. But we do see the kind of candid moments between the two leaders that we do see with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi being there and Anthony Albanese as well, and what the kind of expectations that people have also had, while they have primarily what they came for, but this is also an added bonus for them to get to see the Prime Minister himself in person, and also to see the Australian Prime Minister there, and to see the soft diplomacy in action here while they also witness the test match as well. We'll keep panning, we'll keep moving, we'll keep trying to get in a word from people, because essentially a lot of people in a lot of rush. आप लोग बताइए, आप लोग क्रिकेट देखना है यहाँ पे?
क्रिकेट देखने, मोदी को मिलने
आप बताइए, आप लोग बड़ा पेंट वगैरह भी लगा कर आए हैं यहाँ पे. ऑस्ट्रेलिया का प्रधानमंत्री और हमारे जो प्रधानमंत्री है, दोनों साथ में बैठ के भी बातचीत करने वाले हैं. दोनों देशों की बात होने वाली है, उसको भी आप देखने आए यहाँ पर?
हाँ जरूर, उसी के लिए आए और मैच भी देखने आए.
कई सारे एंथुसियास्ट मैं देख रही हूँ, 6 बजे से कई सारे लोग अंदर जा रहे हैं मोदी जी को भी देखने के लिए. मैच के लिए भी काफी उत्सुकता है लोगों में.
ऑब्वियसली होगी यार, मोदी हमारा पीएम, दैट्स व्हाई.
हमको भी बहुत that smile really said it all, Abhishek. But essentially, a lot of people also, having the sense that there is something very important being discussed here. When we see a lot of these leaders from across the globe, in fact, who come to the country via Gujarat. So that is another sentiment that people have understood, have also reverberated with, and that is the response of that sentiment that we get to see here today. That so many people, in fact, we are expecting. We are assuming that around 1.25 lakh around people that will be inside of the stadium and witnessing the match, witnessing the Prime Minister. And if one can't stand still in this particular gate where all of these people are coming in from, a lot of these people pouring in from. Let's get in a word from some more people. आप लोग आए क्रिकेट देखने आए हो? Sorry, क्रिकेट देखने आए हो? क्रिकेट में yes.
हम लोग
बड़ौदा से स्पेशली आए.
बड़ौदा से स्पेशल आए.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी और यहाँ पे ऑस्ट्रेलिया के प्रधानमंत्री भी आने वाले, आपको यहाँ पे अंदर ही है.
जी हमने देखा टीवी पे, हमने लाइव टेलीकास्ट देखा.
वो भी देखने आए. क्या लगता है दोनों देशों के लिए कितना महत्वपूर्ण भी है ये कि दोनों के प्रधानमंत्री यहाँ गुजरात में बैठ के भी मुलाकात कर रहे हैं?
बहुत अच्छी बात है कि एक डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज है और दूसरा डेवलप कंट्री है, तो दोनों के साथ एक महत्वपूर्ण बैठक होगी और अच्छा कुछ.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस. किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीओ ऑफ 6AR, और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी.
अच्छा.
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट, एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो. जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा. एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम.
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvian media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो।
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल
जी।
आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing. The resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस। किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी।
अच्छा।
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvians media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो।
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल
जी।
आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू. आपके पास गन है, बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना. यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट. दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग. सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस. किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम CEO of 6AR, और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी. अच्छा. टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट, एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो. जब मैंने ADG इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उन्हें
All right, welcome back. As diplomacy plays out with cricket at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Motera, Ahmedabad, we continue to be with Gaurav Sethi of BoardCricket.com and of course Priyanka there reporting from the ground in Ahmedabad. To Gaurav, you first. We were discussing about the pitch. As I was saying earlier, the Ahmedabad pitch sort of tends to spin a little more as the match progresses over the 5 days. You think that's going to really give a handle to the Indians over the match, or you think the Australians have also done well with the spin of late?
Australians have done very well. I think we saw that in Indore, where they pretty much outbowled India. We were only able to take 1 wicket in the second innings, even though Australia was chasing barely 75 odd runs. But what you are seeing is that if the game were to go beyond 3 days, which it hasn't so far, we will see how conditions pan out. But as of now, the way the series has gone is that you've had 3 tests, all of which have been completed well within 3 days. So we're not even seeing how this pitch is going to play out. Classically, what does happen is in India, the ball does tend to spin slower. There is uneven bounce. But what we are seeing here is first sessions of play, in fact, have a lot more bite, where India, in fact, was knocked over pretty much within 2 hours. So it has been unpredictable in that sense, where what we are used to is not really happening. And that I will go back to again is how good is this team against spin? What is their preparedness against spin? Are they able to, take new measures, as in duck down and scrap it out?
Australia doing well with the spin also, and I think they have, as you rightly mentioned, sort of perfected the art of a spin as well. as could be seen in the Indore match. Let's go to Priyanka again now. Priyanka is there on the ground. Priyanka, again, coming back to you just to get the flavor of the mood and the sentiment there. Of course, Narendra Modi is a big draw, but these cricket fans, are they talking cricket also, or they're just focused on the two prime ministers as of now?
Well, that's the big showstopper today, Abhishek. At least for the people, that's what it seems like. Because the number of people that we have spoken to, all of them, in fact, have stated that this is, of course, they have come for cricket, but they have also come for the Prime Minister. They have also come to witness the Prime Minister meeting with the Australian Prime Minister as well. And they have a sense of importance, the importance of what is happening here, the importance of the diplomacy, the soft diplomacy happening on the sidelines of cricket. And cricket, of course, is very, very important for all Indians. And that is something that is seen in this crowd as well, as they are rushing towards the stadium. And they are in fact also, they are also excited to see the Prime Minister as well. We have some more people who are excited faces that we are getting to see since morning are pouring into the stadium. Let's get in a word from them. आप लोग बताइए आप लोग यहाँ पर क्रिकेट देखने आए हैं कि प्रधानमंत्री को देखने आए?
प्रधानमंत्री को दोनों। नरेंद्र मोदी।
अच्छा, ये बताइए, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के प्रधानमंत्री भी यहाँ पर आए हैं। दोनों प्रधानमंत्री मिलजुल के बात करेंगे। ऑस्ट्रेलिया और भारत के जो रिश्ते हैं काफी और मजबूत हो, इसके लिए पूरी ये 4 दिन का भी विजिट है और गुजरात में बैठ के ये सारी बातें हो रही।
सही बात है। ये गुजरात के लिए नहीं, खाली पूरे इंडिया के लिए गर्व की बात है, और वो भी गुजराती के लिए तो बहुत बढ़िया है, बहुत गर्व की बात हुई है।
और यहाँ पे क्रिकेट तो फिर भी देखने आ ही रहे। आप बताओ, क्रिकेट देखने आए हो? हाँ।
ये तो विराट कोहली का बड़ा फैन है।
अच्छा, विराट कोहली को देखने आए हो? प्रधानमंत्री को देखने नहीं आए हो?
नहीं, विराट कोहली
दोनों को रोज। अच्छा, क्रिकेट के लिए आए हो। So essentially, thank you so much. So essentially, what we see, Abhishek, is that a lot of people who have this understanding of what's really happening on the sidelines of the cricket. Of course, the cricket, that is what they have come for, is something that they have said. But this is also the following of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. We see a lot of different people with their different reasons as to why they are coming to this particular stadium, and we'd like to keep panning our cameras as we speak about this, Abhishek, because the number of people who are running towards the stadium now, of course, the crowd is thinning now. Since morning they were pouring into the stadium, and now we suppose more than 1 lakh people that have already been seated inside of the stadium. The toss has happened, and of course the Prime Minister also spending those candid moments with the team, as well as the Australian Prime Minister as well. And we had seen those moments. We had seen those moments even yesterday when Anthony Albanese had come to Ahmedabad and had spent time at the Sabarmati Ashram and had also celebrated Duleti. We are right now here at the Narendra Modi Stadium, outside the stadium, getting you every minute-to-minute update as to what's happening between the Indian Prime Minister and the Australian Prime Minister Stadium.
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvians media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी ऑल्सो।
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल
जी।
आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani.
India's cricket diplomacy is on display. Prime Minister Modi watches the test match with his Australian counterpart. In a fierce attack, Kiran Rijiju takes on Rahul Gandhi, says self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. In the dock for Liquorgate, K. Kavita to appear before the ED on the 11th of March continues to cry political vendetta. Big concerns over the US intelligence report. Report warns of threats from China and Pakistan. Violence at the Women's March in Pakistan. The Pakistani police resort to use of force. Good morning and welcome. You are watching live and breaking on Republic TV. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri and we're going straight across to the big event that we are tracking for you today. It is the fourth test match that is being played between India and Australia, and it does have two very special guests. The two prime ministers, of course, are watching the match now. On your screens is Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, and Narendra Modi, both of them, of course, currently watching the match, but we were, of course, given to understand that they perhaps could also be going into the commentating box a little later and will be there. Now, pictures on your screen are of, I think, what appears to be an exhibition at the Narendra Modi Stadium that has been put up for the two leaders. And just to tell you a bit about what's happening in the match, of course, Australia won the toss and have elected to bat. Abhishek Kapoor, our senior executive editor, of course, continues to join us from our Delhi studios, and we'll go across to him in just a bit. Priyanka is reporting from Motera. She's outside the Narendra Modi Stadium, where the two prime ministers are watching the match now. Just to tell our viewers a bit about what's happening, of course, is that this is being seen as a very important milestone in relations between India and Australia as the two countries celebrate 75 years of relationship. Of course, we are expecting a host of talks a range of talks also to take place between the two sides. Do remember that India and Australia, of course, have a lot of shared concerns, and they are both part, of course, of various groupings which are seen largely to be against China. But these talks between the two prime ministers will also focus on trade. Now, Australia, of course, is India's 17th largest trade partner, and that's something that India will be looking to enhance, specifically given the fact that relationship between China and Australia has been under a strain, and trade between those two countries is also extremely high. So perhaps, this is a good moment for India to seize the moment essentially and become a bigger trading partner with Australia. And that's one of the key things that will be discussed, of course. Apart from that is other groupings, including AUKUS, that are likely to be discussed. Let's go across to Priyanka, who's at the stadium. Priyanka, give us an overall sense of what's happening there right now. Of course, fans still continuing to stream in.
Well, yes, Nupur, I couldn't hear the last part of your question, but we do see, what's really happening now, and we have seen how since morning, the entire sentiment here, at least at this particular place where all the people have been pouring in from, the number of people that have gone in here since 6 a.m., that has been astounding in its own self. And of course, we also heard that the BJP had been trying to make a record here today as well, to gather 132,000 people inside of the stadium. And we will also try to get in a word from other people as well, because essentially what we see is what's really important for the people here who are going inside. What are they really expecting? Is not just cricket. Of course, there are fanatic cricket fans as well who are, going here just for the sport. But there are also people who understand that the Prime Minister is going to be here. And let's not forget, this is Gujarat, this is his home state, this is the Prime Minister's home state. So any time that he does come here, officially or unofficially, the kind of support, the kind of following that he has is very visibly seen in the number of people that gather everywhere that he goes. That being said, of course, the people who have come, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also understand that there is an Australian Prime Minister who's seated right next to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and there will be a conversation about how to strengthen the bond between India and Australia. And there is a sense of understanding of a normal Gujarati that there are international leaders who come to India for the first time and come via Gujarat. So that is also another point of pride that people are taking here and are remembering and understanding the importance of which, because they are also understanding the diplomacy, the international level diplomacy that the Prime Minister is carrying on. That being said, let's also keep panning our cameras, because now we see more and more people coming here. There's a flux of people, there's an influx of people since 6 a.m. and this is Nupur, we've been standing here since 6 a.m. and we keep expecting the number of crowds.
All right, Priyanka, I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt you there, but pictures on your screen are of the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese now leaving the stadium in Motera. This, of course, also marks the culmination of this event, which has piqued the curiosity of Indians as well as others across the world. So Prime Minister Modi also now leaving the venue. The two of them, of course, earlier met with the players and, of course, also did a lap of the stadium. So this marks the end perhaps of this event, but it also marks a significant step between the ties of the two countries. Do remember that this is the 3-day visit of the Prime Minister of Australia. This is the first by an Australian Prime Minister since 2017, and many would say that essentially relations between Australia and India are seeing a new high. A decade ago, perhaps the relationship between India and Australia ranged perhaps from prickly to indifferent, but the 21st century is what many observers feel will mark the strengthening of ties between India and Australia. There are, of course, a lot of shared concerns, including the rise of China, which bother both India and Australia. Do remember that India and Australia are together part not just of the Quad, but also of the AUKUS. The Quad, of course, is being looked largely as a strategic partnership, and perhaps talks between the two sides will focus on that. Also, AUKUS is something that has been formed as not such a formal alliance, but very important nevertheless in the Indo-Pacific region. This visit of the Prime Minister of Australia very, very closely watched. Now, India and Australia, of course, are trading partners as well. and that is something perhaps that both sides would want to boost. Just to tell our viewers a sense that now, sense of what's expected now, the Australian Prime Minister, of course, is also being accompanied by a huge delegation, which also does have top businessmen coming in. Now, the two countries last year, I think, had signed a free trade agreement that was known as the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. And that was significant because, in a sense, it was the first that India had signed with a developed country in a decade. So this is how important, essentially, this round of meetings between India and Australia is going to be. Now, bilateral trade.
The crowds, in fact, are not thinning at all. This excitement is not going down at all. And this is very much palpable here, right outside the Narendra Modi Stadium. All of the people chanting the chants of Modi, chanting the chants of India. Of course, the priorities go cricket, the Prime Minister of the country and the Australian Prime Minister. And that's exactly what we see from the people, from the people that we have been speaking to since morning. And the number of people that are not, they are refusing to go down. The number of people still increasing, and we are expecting, because the BJP had said that they wanted to make a world record of 1.32 lakh people to be inside the stadium as well. And that seems that it would be possible today as well. But speaking of the entire itinerary of the Prime Minister as well, since yesterday we have seen Anthony Albanese, in fact, coming to India via Gujarat, spending some time in the Sabarmati Ashram, then going to the Raj Bhavan and also celebrating Dhuleti with the Chief Minister and the Governor and several other cabinet ministers. And today, of course, now we see both the Prime Minister, that now that they have met, the real talk and the real reason for the visit of Anthony Albanese as well, that will take place. And from here in Mumbai and in Delhi, where the conversations with the MEA S. Jaishankar will also take place. But the starting of this entire 4-day visit has started like this, in a very candid atmosphere, with both the Prime Ministers having met their respective teams as well, and then spending some time together on the sidelines of the cricket and talking soft diplomacy as well. Nupur.
Absolutely. The focus, of course, is going to be on a range of issues between India and Australia. And, one of the things that is going to be on top priority for at least India, Priyanka, is going to be to become a larger trading partner with Australia. The two countries, of course, do share a very close relationship in terms of economic ties, but India would perhaps aim to increase that, because I'm going to come back to you in just a bit. This is, I think, a tweet that has come in from the Australian Prime Minister. A picture also of the two leaders over there appears to be like a selfie. But the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese over there saying celebrating 75 years of friendship through cricket with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So the two Prime Ministers over there, of course, were watching the match together. They also did meet their respective teams, and thereafter now, of course, over the next 3 days, there will be a range of issues that will be discussed. The security of the Indo-Pacific, the global challenges that mounted by China, economic ties between the two sides will be top of that agenda. Of course, I'm going to go back across to Priyanka right now. So, Priyanka, we just saw that tweet coming in from the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, give us a sense really of how the mood was. And that mood is extremely essential, of course, because this is part of the soft diplomacy that we are seeing between the two sides, Priyanka, isn't it? Priyanka, can you hear me? All right, I don't think Priyanka can hear me right now, but we are going to go back to her in just a bit. But pictures on your screen are of what appears to be a selfie that's been clicked by the Australian Prime Minister. and he tweeted that a little while ago, talking about how India and Australia, of course, are celebrating 75 years of that relationship. Of course, there have been ups and downs, but the next century perhaps will bear witness to the strengthening of not just strategic but also economic ties between the two sides. Pictures on your screen are also of the Narendra Modi Stadium, where the fourth test match between India and Australia is being played. It began a short while ago. The two leaders, of course, also did a customary lap of the stadium, of the ground rather, and thereafter, of course, met the two sides. This, of course, is being looked upon largely as soft diplomacy between India and Australia. This is going to be a 3-day visit, I beg your pardon, of the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. I'm going to go across to Priyanka right now. Priyanka, we were just taking our viewers through that selfie that's been clicked by the Australian Prime Minister and posted on Twitter. But essentially what we are seeing, Priyanka, is soft diplomacy on display between the two sides. But give us a sense of how things go from here on now. Obviously, economic ties top of the agenda, and strategically also this visit very important, isn't it? I'm just going to try this once again, Priyanka. I think, as most times, jammers will be in place, and then that's why perhaps we can't really hear you. So it's a frozen picture again. But Priyanka, if you can hear me, give us a sense of what's happening right now. I was earlier asking you about how important this visit is, given the deepening economic as well as strategic relationship between India and Australia.
Right. Yes.
All right. So we seem to have lost that audio connection once again. But just to tell our viewers, both the Prime Ministers have now left the stadium and will be heading now towards a day of talks between the two sides. This is the 3-day visit by the Australian Prime Minister, the first by an Australian PM since 2017. All right, this has been looked upon as a fierce attack that's come in from Kiran Rijiju, the law minister, the union law minister, hitting out at Rahul Gandhi, saying that the self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. The man has become extremely dangerous for India's unity. Now he's provoking people to divide India. India's most popular and loved Prime Minister, Narendra Modi's only mantra is Ek Bharat, Shreshth Bharat. Let's actually listen into a comment. All right, so Kiran Rijiju over there hitting out at Rahul Gandhi. Now, this of course comes after Rahul Gandhi has been on a visit to the United Kingdom and has been speaking at various forums. Let me go across to Abhishek Kapoor, our senior executive editor who continues to be with us from our studios in Delhi. Abhishek, the law minister essentially hitting out at Rahul Gandhi, and we're going to try and play out what he's exactly said, but give us a sense of what you think, where you think rather this is headed now.
Out the soundbite of Kiran Rijiju, Nupur, but the fact of the matter is Rahul Gandhi on his lecture circuit in Europe, in the United Kingdom essentially, has been every day speaking something or the other which sort of presents India's democracy in poor light. In one instance, he had said that democracy has completely vanished from India and that the West is not doing or seems oblivious of that development, almost suggesting that the West should be doing something about India's democracy. That's not really liked and appreciated in India, and we are seeing now the law minister Kiran Rijiju really coming out and saying that Rahul Gandhi has crossed a certain line. earlier, of course, we have seen Rahul Gandhi making those mentions. Okay, it's a tweet by the Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju, and let's put it on air and see exactly what it says. This is the fiercest attack yet, and Kiran Rijiju now hitting out at Rahul Gandhi. The tweet is on air, and it says, people of India know Rahul Gandhi is Pappu, but foreigners don't know that he is actually Pappu, and it's not necessary to react to his foolish statements, but the problem is that his anti-India statements are misused by the anti-India forces to tarnish the image of India. Every day Rahul Gandhi has been speaking on the situation in India from his London sojourn, and that's something which has been gathering all this attention. Nupo.
Executive Editor Abhishek Kapoor, of course, over there taking us through what appears to be a tweet of the Law Minister. But thank you, Abhishek, for joining us on that one. Now, 4 people were reported dead on Tuesday when 2 small planes collided over Lake Hartridge in Winter Haven. After hours of searching, the Pork Country Sheriff's Office late Tuesday night identified 3 of the 4 people who died in the accident, as well as the planes that were involved. Here's more.
A pilot and a 19-year-old student were among the 4 people killed when 2 small planes collided mid-air over a central Florida lake. Officials say a Piper J3 Cub seaplane and a Cherokee Piper 161 fixed-wing plane crashed Tuesday afternoon near Winter Haven Regional Airport. Rescue workers later pulled out 4 bodies from the planes. The pilot and student were on the fixed-wing plane. And with several casualties reported, investigation has now been launched into the crash. Agency report for Republic TV.
You are with Republic TV, and still to come, K. Kavita is in the dock, asks for more time to appear for questioning. And also coming up, we get you the latest US intelligence report which warns of risks from China.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो.
सर, इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम.
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स.
बिल्कुल
जी.
आपकी फौज में भी यही है. डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू. आपके पास गन है, बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना. यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट. कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग. सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीईओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी। अच्छा। टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुखरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
Soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician and the Latvian media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो।
सर, इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल जी। आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट। दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वॉज एट दैट टाइम CEO of 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी
अच्छा
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप उनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing. The resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
India's cricket diplomacy on display. Prime Minister Modi watches Test match with Australian counterpart. In a fiercest attack, Rijiju takes on Rahul, says self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. In the dock for Liquorgate, Kavita to appear before the ED on the 11th of March continues to cry political vendetta. Big concerns over US intel report. Report warns of threats from China and Pakistan. Violence at Women's March in Pakistan. Shehbaz's cops resort to the use of force. Hello and welcome. You're watching Republic TV and it's time now for all the top stories that are coming in live and breaking here on your screens. I'm Rukma with you. Let's begin. ED teams have reached the Har jail for a second round of questioning of former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia in the alleged excise policy scam. Earlier on the 7th of March, the ED had questioned the former Delhi Deputy Chief Minister and senior Aam Aadmi Party leader Piyush Ohri. Joining me now for this latest development, Piyush, it's over to you to tell our viewers after the 7th of March, we are hearing that ED teams have now arrived at the Har jail. They will be questioning Manish Sisodia once again, even as the Aam Aadmi Party continues to say that it is political vendetta, even voicing concerns about his security and safety.
Our viewers who are viewing us at the moment, and you rightly said that this is the second round of questioning that is going to be undertaken by the Enforcement Directorate of Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, who has been lodged in jail number 1 of Tihar jail. On March 7th, also, the Enforcement Directorate had probed Manish Sisodia over his alleged role of tweaking the policy in the Delhi excise liquor scam, for which he has been arrested by the Central Bureau of Investigation and is right now being lodged under Tihar jail. But the difficulties for Manish Sisodia is continuing to rise as Enforcement Directorate, which is also probing this matter, is also investigating the entire matter and is today probing for the second time the Delhi Deputy Chief Minister. Now, the probing by the investigative agencies, namely the CBI and the Central Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement Directorate, continues, while the Aam Aadmi Party members continues to cry foul and says that this is a political vendetta. In fact, they have also made a very big allegation of saying that Manish Sisodia has been deliberately placed under the cell of hardened criminals so that he can be broken, he can be harassed, and ultimately he admits to his role of being corrupt and tweaking the policy of Delhi excise liquor scam, so to give advantage to certain vendors. It is now going to be interesting to see that what actually is the grilling by the ED of Manish Sisodia going to bring out, and will it actually result in more troubles for Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia. Back to the studio.
Right, so Piyush Shori there reporting from outside Tihar jail. ED teams have arrived outside the jail where Manish Sisodia is lodged. The Aam Aadmi Party even raising concerns about his lodgings there, his cell there in Tihar jail. Well, the ED now moving in for the questioning of Manish Sisodia. Earlier it was the CBI that was more involved. Now that the ED has arrived, it would be related to money laundering. In this case, earlier the BJP had alleged that it was a scam worth around 144 crore rupees. That's what we had heard. Also, so if you could take our viewers once again through the allegations related to money laundering that that the ED could most likely question him about today.
So you rightly said, Rukma, that the ED in this case is probing the angle of money laundering and what actually were the proceeds of crime based on the kind of commission that was given to the accused over here by the distributors and vendors, for which this policy was tweaked and been given advantage to. In fact, there are allegations that the money that was received from the proceeds of crime by tweaking the Delhi excise liquor policy was in fact used by the Aam Aadmi Party for the Goa elections. Now, how true are these claims? It is only going to be revealed after there is going to be investigation, for which not only the Enforcement Directorate but the Central Bureau of Investigation is also probing the entire matter. For, as you rightly said, the Enforcement Directorate for the second time is grilling Manish Sisodia over the angle of money laundering. And now, from here on, it is going to be interesting to see that besides Manish Sisodia, who all is the ED going to be grilling for finding the angle of money laundering in the Delhi excise liquor scam, in which not only Manish Sisodia, but now probably K. Kavitha, the daughter of Telangana Chief Minister KCR, is also going to be grilled very soon by the Enforcement Directorate. Back to in the studio.
Right, Piyush Shori, many thanks for joining us there and for bringing us up to speed on that. Let's move on now to other top stories. BJP National President JP Nadda will be in Bengaluru today to take part in a roadshow and public meeting as part of the party's Vijay Sankalp Yatra ahead of the Karnataka Assembly polls scheduled for May. An overwhelming welcome from India for Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister of Australia. The Australian Prime Minister said he is honoured to celebrate Holi in Ahmedabad in India. He further said that Holi's message of renewal through the triumph of good over evil is an enduring reminder for all of us. Union Minister Kiren Rijiju hits out at Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. He tweets, I quote, "This self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. This man has become extremely dangerous for India's unity. He is provoking people to divide India."
Speaking exclusively to Republic TV, Devansh Yadav, IAS Deputy Commissioner Kishtwar, says pro-Khalistani leader Amritpal Singh's aides are set to face a crackdown in Jammu and Kashmir. Also that the process has been initiated to revoke the licenses, the arms licenses of his aides, and they will be cancelled. He said the case will be registered under the Arms Action. Suspected spy pigeon fitted with tiny camera and a chip caught from a fishing boat off the Paradeep coast in Jagjit Singhpur in Orissa. Police say the fishermen found the pigeon in their boat while fishing in the sea. They handed over the pigeon to Paradeep Marine Police Station. Two people killed and eight others, including children, injured after speeding Thar allegedly crushed many in New Delhi's Malai Mandir area. According to police, two of the injured have been identified as Munna and Samir, succumbed to their injuries during treatment at a hospital. Massive fire reported from a godown of a tent house in Madhya Pradesh's Burhanpur. The tent materials worth lakhs of rupees were destroyed due to the fire. Preliminary investigations have hinted at short circuit being a possible reason. Firefighters rushed the spot and doused the fire. A day after a group of drunk men who came to admit a patient in a hospital in Damo attacked a ward boy and the security guard, massive chaos broke out at the hospital. A probe is being demanded and the calls for action are also being made, and the hospital staff and doctors sat on a dharna at the main gate of the district hospital to call for this. In this process, the treatment of several patients was delayed. Minister of State in the Ministry of External Affairs, Meenakshi Lekhi, flagged off an 1848-kilometer woman bike rally from India Gate in Delhi to Jagdalpur in Chhattisgarh. 5 CRPF women warriors embarked on the 1,848-kilometer bike rally from India Gate to Jagdalpur. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price has said the United States needed a confirmed ambassador to India. He further said that there is no other country around the world that would put itself in a position to have a vacancy open in a strategically important and valuable place like India for over 2 years. And in a fiercest attack yet, Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju takes on Rahul Gandhi, says the self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. In the dock for liquor gate, K. Kavita, to appear before the ED on the 11th of March, continues to cry political vendetta.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो.
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम.
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल
जी.
आपकी फौज में भी यही है. डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू. आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना. यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट. कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग. सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, Liptards. Relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन
कर्नल साहब? तो ही वाज
And breaking news coming in now from Karnataka, the state in which assembly polls are just around the corner. We're seeing politics heating up ahead of the Karnataka elections. B.S. Yadurappa, tasked with keeping the BJP unit in the state together, has said he will talk with V. Somana and other BJP leaders once he is back in Bengaluru. Amidst talks of dissidents within the BJP and V. Somana walking out, the High Command is given the task of keeping him in the party. That's V. Somana in the party. Ahead of the elections, the task for that has fallen on the shoulders of B.S. Yadurappa. And D.K. Shivakumar, meanwhile, on the other hand, has countered that the BJP is a divided house. They will not win more than 65 seats in the state.
ಇದರಲ್ಲೇನು ಸತ್ಯಾಂಶ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರೊಬ್ಬರು ಸಹ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಯನ್ನ ಬಿಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೋಮಣ್ಣ ಸೇರಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲೇನು ಸತ್ಯಾಂಶ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನು ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರೊಬ್ಬರು ಸಹ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಯನ್ನ ಬಿಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೋಮಣ್ಣ ಸೇರಿ
ಬಿಜೆಪಿದು 65 ಮೇಲೆ ಹೇರಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಖಾತ್ರಿ ಇದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದಾರೋ ಇನ್ನಲ್ಲೂ ಈಗ ಯಡಿಯೂರಪ್ಪನವ್ರು ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರದ್ದೇನೋ ಒಂದು ಲೆಕ್ಕಾಚಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾನು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು 60-65 ಮೇಲೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏರಲ್ಲ. ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಕಾರ 40%ಗೆ ಇಳಿದ್ರು ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯ. 40 ನಂಬರ್ಗೆ ಇಳಿದ್ರು ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯ. ಹಿಂದೆ 40% ಯಾರು ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾರು ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾರು ಸುದ್ದಿನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಯಾವ ವಿಚಾರನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರವ್ರ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೂವಾಗಳೇ ಹೊರತು ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವುದು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ.
And so ahead of the polls in battleground Karnataka, a state that's going to polls in just a matter of maybe a month and a half, B.S. Yadurappa, strongman of the BJP, particularly of the Lingayat sector, it has been tasked, we hear, with keeping the BJP unit in the state together, even as the Congress's chief there has attacked the party, saying that there is dissidence within it. And Prajwal, to take us through this new war of words that has erupted with the Congress making allegations against the BJP. Well, the D.K. Shivakumar coming right out and saying that there is dissidence within the BJP party unit. Now we're hearing that B.S. Yadurappa is to tackle that problem. Is there really dissidence within the saffron unit there in the state?
Now, there has been a chain of events which has led with the BJP High Command tasking this job out to B.S. Yediyurappa, because initially V. Somana was not present in the Vijay Sankalpa Yatra, which was being led in Chamrajnagar by the BJP National President J.P. Nadda, and he was also the district in charge minister for Chamrajnagar district. And this also started the rumor mills going up, stating that V. Somana was unhappy with the party and the importance that was given to him. Secondly, even during the Vijay Sankalpa Yatra, which was jointly conducted by the Revenue Minister R. Ashoka and V. Somana, we clearly saw that there was a divided house and they were fighting with each other there, and an ugly war of words had ensued as well. Therefore, Yediyurappa has now been tasked with the responsibility of going ahead and making sure that the party will stay together ahead of the elections.
Well, Prajwal, many thanks for joining us there and for sharing those details with us. Prajwal telling us about the chain of events that has led now to B.S. Yediyurappa to be tasked with this. Well, India's cricket diplomacy is on display. Prime Minister Modi watches test match with Australian counterpart. Coming up here on Republic, all the details and updates on this. Stay with us.
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has, liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीईओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी,
अच्छा,
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट, एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो. जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम.
A serving soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvian media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this.
You're watching Live and Breaking. Some international news now. A security guard and a suspect died on Wednesday in a shootout at the international airport in the Chilean capital when assailants tried to steal $32 million. Chief of Army Staff General Asim Munir on Wednesday in Pakistan said he would not interfere in politics. He said that political leadership should resolve its issues on its own. The Army Chief of Pakistan's statements came out of the former Prime Minister. Imran Khan said he is ready to talk to Army Chief General in the broader interest of the country, but no one is willing to talk. Police in Georgia's capital have fired water cannons and tear gas to disperse demonstrators around the Parliament building protesting a draft law that they say could stifle media freedom and civil society. And in the fiercest attack ever, Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju takes on Rahul Gandhi, says self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. Stay tuned for all the updates.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी।
अच्छा।
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
Soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvians media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो।
सर, इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम।
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल जी। आपकी फौज में भी यही है, डिसिप्लिन, माइंड, बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू। आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना। यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग। सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम, किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है, ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है, करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से।
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing: the resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype and questionable corporate governance does not stigmatize the Indian corporate sector.
आप इंडिया आते हैं एंड देन यू स्टार्ट स्पेशल फोर्सेस, एनएसजी, गरुड़, मार्कोस, किस तरीके से ये सफर शुरू हुआ स्पेशल फोर्सेस को ट्रेन करने?
कर्नल साहब, तो ही वाज एट दैट टाइम सीओ ऑफ 6AR और पहली अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्होंने मुझे दी।
अच्छा।
टू ट्रेन हिज रेजिमेंट एंड ही आस्क्ड मी कि आप इनको नाइफ टू नाइफ कॉम्बैट में खुकरी ट्रेन करो। जब मैंने एडीजी इन्फेंट्री के सामने वो डेमो दिया और उनको वो बहुत अलग लिखा, एज लॉन्ग एज आवर सोल्जर्स आर सेफ, दे गेट द बेस्ट, आई हैव नो प्रॉब्लम।
Soldier of the Indian Army has been murdered by a politician, and the Latvians media is quiet about it. Not emphatically, not vocally, not till Republic named and shamed them about their silence over Lance Naik Prabhu's death. Look at this man. He's the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, and as our reporter runs after him to ask him to say one thing, he says not one word. He just keeps running away from the Republic reporters.
All the 9 of the accused have been taken to custody. The primary accused, Chinnasamy, had been picked up by the CID and handed over to the Tamil Nadu cops.
कहीं ना कहीं मार्शल आर्ट्स लड़ाई झगड़े खून खराबे से ज्यादा आई थिंक इट्स अबाउट हार्मनी आल्सो
सर इट्स अ पर्सनालिटी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम
पूरा मार्शल आर्ट्स
बिल्कुल आपकी फौज में भी यही है डिसिप्लिन माइंड बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट इज इन कमांड ऑफ यू आपके पास गन है बट आप किसी सिविलियन को गुस्सा आते गोली तो नहीं मार देते ना यू हैव टू कंट्रोल दैट कंट्रोल कम्स फ्रॉम द माइंड एंड फ्रॉम द ट्रेनिंग सो दैट जो आर्मी में हम बोलते हैं फोर्स कंटिन्यूम किस फोर्स पे कितना फोर्स देना है ये मेंटल कंट्रोल ट्रेनिंग से आता है करेक्ट ट्रेनिंग से
I said very clearly that the Adanis will be in big trouble going forward, but this won't even be a factor or a wrinkle for India. At that time, some unthought and unresearched opinion had predicted the tremors hitting the Indian economy, hitting the Modi government, and I said no. On the contrary, I was very clear at that time. I said on the contrary, this whole Adani episode and just how quickly global sentiment will subside and bounce back on India will prove only one thing. The resilience of the Indian economy, the solidity of the Indian economy, the prospects of the Indian economy. So this entire Adani episode in a way proves to be a testament to the India growth story. Not an impediment, not a blur, not a blemish. This has actually ended up helping the Modi government. It has liptards, relax, your BP is going up, but it has. We can't take the focus away from Adani either. Adani is on free fall. And even the most basic business mind will admit that this is because they have been hugely overvalued, huge overhyped. Viewers, we need to do a deep dive into Adani. There are fundamental flaws, ladies and gentlemen. And we need to keep the focus on Adani. Over leverage of this kind, flawed business models, too much hype.
Top headlines at 11 a.m. India's cricket diplomacy on display. Prime Minister Modi watches test match with Australian counterpart. In a fiercest attack, Rijiju takes on Rahul Gandhi, says self-declared Congress prince has crossed all limits. In the dock for Liquorgate, Kavita to appear before the ED on 11th of March continues to cry political vendetta charge. Big concerns over US Intel report warns of threats from China and Pakistan. Violence at Women's March in Pakistan, Shehbaz Corps resort to the use of force. Thanks for staying tuned to this edition of Live and Breaking. I'm Samiksha Srivastava. We start with the news break coming in from Pakistan, where the police was seen using force on the women who were peacefully staging a protest march in several locations in Pakistan. In fact, we're given to understand that thousands of women took part in rallies across Pakistan, despite efforts by authorities in several cities to crack down on these marches that were being held by the women. So the rallies that were being held in several locations of Pakistan, particularly in the Islamabad region, where these marches turned violent as several policemen resorted to use of force on those women who were staging a march. In fact, listen into that reaction that's coming. All right.
Before we play out that reaction of the Pakistan minister, let's go across to Kaswar, who's joining us from Islamabad. Kaswar, if you can put this into context for us, what exactly happened on Wednesday? These were, of course, peaceful marches that were being carried out by these women, but we, of course, saw those policemen using force on the women protesters.
Well, you rightly pointed out, it was actually a peaceful protest, peaceful rally, like always, and in Islamabad, police has to force, police resorted to the use of batons, and they actually, try to arrest some of the protesters in Islamabad, in the heart of Islamabad, and that was the beginning of the clash that erupted between the women and the police as well. Let me tell you what exactly led to the clash between two sides. Actually, the march was, going to be very peaceful like always. But all of a sudden, the organizers of this peaceful women march abruptly started abusing Pakistan's armed forces. And actually, they put blame on Pakistan armed forces that they have angered the wealth and resources of Pakistan. That was actually the beginning of the clash between the two sides. When they said that when they started blaming and raising anti-army slogan, the policemen that were actually protecting them, they tried to stop these women protesters, and they requested them to stop raising such kind of the slogans against Pakistan's army. But that was the turning point, and after that they both got engaged into actually it erupted the clashes between the police and the protesters, and what I can tell you, it was actually the Matam Mast calendar in the heart of the capital. And what we have seen, a number of the journalists who
Kaswar,
were deputed by the organization to cover, they actually have to face the brutality as well. A number of the journalists got multiple wounds at the spot, and according to my sources, a number of women protesters landed in the hospital as well. It was a horrible clash that erupted soon after the protesters.
Yes, and Kaswar, the hypocrisy of the Pakistan government also stands exposed, because on one hand, the Pakistan ministers are advocating for women's rights, but there we see the visuals in which several of those women were injured as those clashes broke out. The police, of course, using force, water cannons on these peaceful marches that were being carried out. In fact, let's listen into that response that's come in from Pakistan Minister Bilateral advocating for women's rights in Pakistan.
Government representatives and policy makers need to review and reform laws that discriminate against women, including those that restrict their economic, social, cultural and political rights in Muslim and non-Muslim countries. This includes laws that restricts women's access to inheritance, property and credit, as well as those that limit their ability to participate in the labor force. To create an inclusive societies, it is essential to encourage women's economic empowerment through access to credit, financial services and entrepreneurship opportunities. This can be achieved through policies that support women-owned businesses and provide incentives for the private sector to invest in women-led ventures. Fifth, ongoing conflicts, including the situations of occupation, are destroying the lives of millions of Muslim women and girls. OIC member states, with the cooperation of the international community and international financial institutions, must initiate programs to assist Muslim women and girls living in conflict zones or under foreign occupation, such as in Jammu and Kashmir and Palestine.
All right, so there you heard Bilawal Bhutto advocating for women's right, calling for women empowerment in the country. Kaswar, of course, continues to be with us. Kaswar, irony here died 1,000 deaths. You see, you just heard the foreign minister of Pakistan talking about women empowerment. But on that side, you see those visuals also, how the police can be seen using lathis, batons on the women who were carrying out the rally in Pakistan.
Well, definitely we heard from the Foreign Minister of Pakistan advocating the women's rights on the international forum, but that shows the duality of Pakistan's government as well. In the past and the current regime, it is resorted to same duality as well. But we have seen yesterday that actually shows the real picture of how Pakistan treats its women in Pakistan. But don't forget that all of the Pakistani foreign ministers and the ministers as well, whenever they come on the international forum, their tone abruptly changed. As we have seen how the foreign minister of Pakistan was advocating at the international forum that he was actually advocating how to treat the women in Pakistan and on the globe. But actual picture coming out from Pakistan, what we have seen in the heart of Islamabad, most of the women were, brutally beaten up, and most of them landed into hospital. That is one thing. Another thing, let me give you another clear example of how Pakistan treats its women. Whenever we discuss the Pakistani women and Pakistani men, Pakistan has always discriminated its women. All of the lucrative job goes to men. And day before yesterday, I was talking to someone. Even the Pakistani cricket
and
women
Kaswar, there's no
have,
way that the Pakistan government, the police can justify this kind of action against the women. Just to tell our viewers, hundreds and thousands of these women were carrying out peaceful marches against the atrocities inflicted on them in this country. But you see right there how the police used force to curb and suppress the voices of the women in Pakistan. All right, moving on to news break that is just coming in of multi-location ED raids which are taking place in several locations in JNK. So, crackdown on Pakistan funding module in JNK. Of course, in the latest we given to understand that the raids are underway at multiple locations in Kashmir Valley. The raids are in connection with MBBS seats allotment racket to locals in different colleges of Pakistan by Hurriyat Netas. So the Hurriyat Netas who are under the radar of the investigative agency. Let's go across to Gursimran joining us live from the location. Gursimran, take us through the details you are picking up. It seems that the Hurriyat Netas are under the lens of the ED.